Welcome to OMN English News Update, broadcasting to you live. Today is Sunday, the 27th of September 2020. My name is Tultu Tufa and I'm presenting with technician Adil Osman. Today's bulletin is headlined with the following reports. 2,000 people charged over icon Haj Alu Hundesa's murder. Transferred from jail to prison without conviction. Oromo leaders and activists arbitrarily moved locations. Large NGO uses inflammatory language to instruct Ethiopian members of staff. Abiy Ahmed accused by American diplomat for having Menelik syndrome. And US Senate support climbing for the Oromo protests movement. And now for today's news. In Oromia this week, 2,000 people were charged with Oromo icon Haj Alu Hundesa's death. Attorney General of Ethiopia, Gideon Timotheus, told a news conference that about 2,000 Oromo people have been charged over deadly violence that followed the killing of a popular singer Haj Alu Hundesa in June this year. He disclosed more charges against more prisoners are likely to follow and emphatically denied that cases against Ethiopian Prime Minister's opponents are politically motivated. The Attorney General made the announcement earlier this week, stating the current figure of arrests are listed at 2,000 suspects. He claimed that they are being charged for their participation in the violence that has taken place in Oromia's regional state. The Attorney General's charges are linked to what the government claims are inter-ethnic attacks. Reportedly, more than 9,000 people, including journalists and prominent opposition politicians, continue to wait trial after more than 100 days in waiting. The mass arrests continue to stoke domestic and international criticism towards the leader of the ruling party. Jawar Mohammed, once considered an Abiy ally, was vocal in his court appearance earlier this week. While he is accused of crimes including terrorism and incitement to violence, he appeared in court to denounce the charges and declare them as part of a plot to sideline Abiy's opponents ahead of national elections expected next year. Attorney General firmly rejected any suggestion that the cases against Jawar and his and others are tainted by politics. His statements, viewed by critics as adhering to rhetoric that seeks to blame Oromo political views under the guise of inter-ethnic and inter-religious conflict. The Attorney General was also quick to clarify that although suspects now charged include politicians, he claimed that no one, not even Oromo people, are being arrested for their political activity. The Attorney General stated there seems to be a lack of clarity between peaceful, lawful political mobilization, implying the Oromo People's Movement reflects an ultranationalist, militant, violent political activism which results in death and injury of citizens. While advocating for detaining Oromo people without commencement of a trial, responses from their legal representation indicate the Attorney General's own words advocate deliberately misguided rhetoric of militant violence. In other Oromo news, Oromo leaders and activists arbitrarily moved from jail to prison. Ethiopian courts have ordered the transfer of Oromo politicians to a regular prison. In a move believed to replicate a kangaroo-style court, Ethiopian courts have ordered the transfer of Oromo Federalist Congress high-profile leaders accused of terrorism, including Bekele Garba, Jawar Mohammed, Hamza Borana, and others to a regular prison. Prison is usually reserved for convicted criminals, and those who are yet to face trial require detainment in the police or jail custody. Lawyers for the detainees, including Dr. Tokumba Daba, told Oromia Media Network that the men would be removed from police custody under the new orders. The court date, scheduled for the 24th of September, against OFC leaders for terrorism charges were adjourned as the prison administration failed to present detainees, including Mr. Dejanet Afa. The court adjourned after police presented multiple complaints, including the short time allocated for securing defendants who are based in other countries around the world. Some of these people include the academic expert Dr. Tsagaya Ararsa, ex-Councillor General Dr. Berhane Meskel, and Oromia Media Network's Editor-in-Chief Mr. Dejene Gutama. The lawyer for the defendants in Ethiopia, Dr. Tokuma, declared that the unacceptability of police complaints were given that the prosecutor's charge sheet already indicated the defendants were charged in absentia. Jawar Mohammed also responded to the court's order for the change of imprisonment. He was quoted as saying, "We are political prisoners, not criminals. We don't care if you jail us in the ground or up in the sky." The defendants' lawyers contend that political detainees are still considered suspects in the eyes of the law and not convicted criminals, therefore cancelling the need to arrange transfer to a regular prison centre. Another prominent detainee, Mr. Shamsuddin Taha, appealed to the courts for a lack of medical attention and treatment for his deteriorating health, despite active orders instructing Mr. Taha to be seen by a private doctor. Mr. Taha, who is yet to be found guilty of any charge, has further requested for court orders to grant his participation in the annual Oromo Thanksgiving Irrecha celebration. Mr. Taha disclosed never being absent from the annual festival for his entire life. Other prisoners, including Mr. Boranat Ebile, have also submitted court appeals to authorize their families to administer their personal properties and assets which have currently been frozen from use. Human rights violations worsen in Oromia. In Oromia, the entire region continues to be in an undeclared state of emergency, known locally as command posts. Human rights violations continue to worsen, including disrespect for court verdicts, torture, arbitrary jailing, and killings across the region. 24 Oromo Liberation Front top officials and their associates have been ordered by the courts to be released on bail. However, Sabata City Police refused to release OLF leadership, including Lami Benya, Michael Boran, and Dawit Abdata. Despite direct court orders, the police claim they are under the orders of a top-level authority to not release the OLF members. The executive and judicial state continues to conflict as the courts of Oromia make orders that are directly defied by the executive police force. In a separate incident, the Warajararso district of the Northern Showa zone of Oromia, police have allegedly killed a detainee in police custody, locals have reported to Oromia Media Network. Ligaba Irrena, who was accused of having links with the Oromo Liberation Army, known as the OLA, was unexpectedly raided while he was not home. The police kidnapped his wife and son. Upon hearing that his family was jailed in his absence, Mr. Ligaba reported to the police to rescue his family. He was immediately imprisoned, and the following day, the police returned Mr. Ligaba's dead body to his family, stating he suicided in police cells. Local reports, however, present a remarkably different story to Oromia Media Network, stating that the cause for his death was heavy torture. In the Chirro town of West Hararghe zone in Oromia, OMN has been informed that more than 500 people have been detained in what has been labelled a concentration house in one of the town's kebeles. Sources from Chirro have reported and said that the prisoners were being crammed into a small space amid concerns for COVID-19 pandemics. Since the death of Hachalu Hundessa, they revealed that women are frequently being sexually violated by security forces who remove the women from the crowds under the guise of conducting special inquiries. The police deny all accusations and refrain from making statements with silence in response to all allegations. Irrecha celebrations attacked once again by the government. In the lead up to the largest Oromo festival of the year, the government has declared that the preceding celebration of the Orthodox Church, known as Meskel festivities, will be restricted to 5,000 people only, permitted by the government. Critics read that the restriction placed on the Christian festivity less than 1 week before the Oromo celebration may in fact be applied to the Irrecha festivities, typically attended by millions of Oromos who flock from around the country. The restriction is seen as a deliberate attempt to sabotage the famed Irrecha celebration, which transcends faith to bring Oromo people together and is attended by millions of people. In 2019, an estimated 7 million people attended last year's Irrecha celebrations in the town of Bishoftu. Records have it that last year's Irrecha celebration in Bishoftu was attended by close to 7 million people and the largest of its kind in Africa to be celebrated in an open space. Reports across Oromia are already being exposed to government securities seeking to hunt youth and adults to arrest and prevent them from attending the Irrecha festivities. Most infuriating to the attendees of the celebration is the government's failed attempts at issuing restrictive passes to limit the number of Oromo participants who are expected to attend in their millions from across Oromia. The celebration is expected to take place on October the 3rd in Bishoftu City and October the 4th in Finfinne City, and any attempts to limit numbers would be considered tantamount to cancellation, claim international Oromo activists. Prominent non-government organisation called CARE has been accused of using inflammatory language against the ethnicity of its own service users. CARE, a recognised global leader dedicated to ending poverty, is the NGO whose defamatory internal emails have been leaked on social media. The organisation, who on its website states pride for being known for their unshakable commitment to the dignity of people, has sent out an email memorandum with highly sensationalised warnings against the Oromo people. The subject of the email, entitled Holiday Advisory, was sent by employee Abraham Abebe to the CARE Ethiopia staff. The email content included sensationalised warnings that discriminated and vilified Oromo people. Mr. Abebe, on behalf of the organisation CARE, stated to his staff that you may recall some of the ethnic extremist parties called federalist groups, including Jawar Mohammed, who supports the idea that he may duel the situation in Oromia again. He continues to state that the Irrecha may give change for Oromo youth, who he described in his email as extremists, to demonstrate support of the idea of lawlessness in the country. CARE's response to the affair stopped short of a direct apology under the leadership of Chief Officer of Ethiopia, Esther Watts, who chose to release a statement as listed here below. CARE Ethiopia, who reportedly ascribes to embracing differences and actively including a variety of voices, are known for their interaction with the Oromo people. The NGO's behaviour, including the apparent apology, was hit back by numerous and prominent voices, including that of academic Dr. Henok Gabisa. He declared there is no reason for a humanitarian organisation to collectively discriminate against half of the population of a country they have chosen to enter. Dr. Gabisa stated this was particularly unacceptable given that CARE Ethiopia operates a number of their programs within Oromia, while at the same time sharing internal memos with staff that incited inflammatory and anti-Oromo views. It appears that CARE has yet to live up to its name. And now for news across Ethiopia. Tigray elects regional president. The Tigray state of Ethiopia, which conducted elections defying Abiy Ahmed's decision to postpone elections indefinitely. The Tigray state has appointed Debre Tsigion Gebre Michael to serve the state for the upcoming 5 years as the president. Leader of the ruling party, Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, rejected legitimacy of the election held on September 9, 2020. He labelled the Tigray election outcomes as unacceptable and void. However, despite this view, he posted a congratulatory message on his official Facebook page, informing the president that despite our political differences, we will work one day together. While Abiy Ahmed sent his social media-based congratulations, the House Speaker for Ethiopia's Parliament, Mr. Tagesech Afo, shared remarks of a very different tone. He stated in a press briefing that although the time is unspecified, Ethiopian national elections will be held in 2021, including a repeat election to be held in Tigray, even though regional elections have already been completed. However, the executive member of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Mr. Getachew Reda, reacted swiftly to the news by declaring that neither Abiy Ahmed nor Mr. Jafar have the capacity to instruct Tigray's fate or to demand another round of elections. When asked by a journalist on the Voice of Wayane TV, Getachew suggested that Abiy's illegal regime that violated the constitution of the country to extend its term cannot force Tigray region to rehold a legal election with voter turnouts of over 2.7 million people. Getachew warned that the Tigrayan people are serious and should seriously think twice before messing about a second round of an election in Tigray. Still within Ethiopia, the battle for Abiy Ahmed to keep stability in his country continues less than 12 months after receiving his coveted Peace Prize. Abiy Ahmed may have won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending a protracted conflict with neighbouring country Eritrea, but even the peace pact is in doubt as Eritrea says Ethiopia has not delivered expected economic benefits. Ethiopian troops also continue to maintain a presence in its territory. Regional leaders are also increasingly active in demanding greater autonomy. Desert locusts continue to undermine regional food security. Egypt and Sudan continue to take offense at Ethiopia's plans to fill a massive reservoir on the Blue Nile that threatens water supplies for Egypt and Sudan. The threat of COVID-19's pandemic threatens to reverse years of Ethiopian economic growth. Abiy's decision to postpone elections to curb the virus spread have instead raised questions over his commitment to democracy. The chairman of the Oromo Federalist Congress, Merara Guddina, declared that the ruling party, Abiy Ahmed, has pushed the country's politics deeper into a dead end, and that Abiy Ahmed lacks the experience and know-how to lead a nation of 110 million people. Tensions along the country's economic and ethnic lines are arguably Abiy's deepest-seated challenge, one that threatens to undermine the stability on which Ethiopia's recent economic success was built. Politicians and civilians are not alone in their concerns. Investors whose businesses have flourished under Abiy are also querying the future stability of the country. Managing Director of Soul Rebels, which makes shoes from recycled materials, Mr. Bethlehem Tilahun Alemu, stated that one of the biggest components for a successful business is peace and security. Samrawit Fikru, the Chief Executive Officer of taxi-hailing app Ride, shares similar sentiments. She stated that the Ethiopian government's decision to shut down the internet for 22 days during the July unrests have weighed heavily on her company's revenue. They have put more than 22,000 drivers in the capital city out of work. Despite the stated upheavals within the country, the International Monetary Fund, known as the IMF, continues to forecast economic growth of 3.2% this year. And now for news around the world. American diplomat describes Ethiopian leader as a victim of the Menelik syndrome. American senior diplomat Mr. Herman Cohn stated that the current Ethiopian ruler is suffering from the nostalgia of Menelik II's ruling model. Mr. Cohn, an important figure involved in installing the EPRDF party to rule Ethiopia during the 1991 London conference, stated the following about the current Ethiopian leader. As an outsider, looking from the outside, I see that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is suffering from Menelik syndrome, right now striving for more power, more control. Mr. Cohn also reflected regret over turning down the Oromo opportunity for a referendum in 1991. He stated, "I made a mistake for turning down Lenç Oleta's request for holding Oromia's referendum along with Eritrea." Mr. Cohn made these statements at the opening of the virtual Convention of Diplomacy and Advocacy organised by the Oromo Legacy Leadership and Advocacy Conference held over the weekend. Mr. Cohn was a participant in a seminar entitled "The Role of the US Policy and Prospects for Federalism in Ethiopia." He said he was thrilled to be part of the US policy dialogue in the conference. Also in America, Congress support continues to increase for the Oromo protests movement. US Senator Adam Smith and Senator Pramila Jayapal represent the newest Congress members to express their written support for the Oromo people in Oromia and the diaspora. They state their alarm at the growing unrest and reports of human rights abuses in Ethiopia. They urge Secretary Mike Pompeo to act towards the Ethiopian government in response to the arrests of American residents Yusuf Bashir and Ridwan Aman, who are released on bail but not permitted to leave the country. They spoke vocally against the regression of Ethiopia's progress towards democratic principle, which was promised as part of the economic and political reform for all Ethiopians. The two senators now join a growing number of senators who await a response from Secretary Pompeo in relation to a call to investigate the actions of the Ethiopian government. And finally, Irrecha celebrations start to take place in countries all over the world. Oromo people across the globe have commenced celebrating with men, women and children from all nations, from all backgrounds and all faiths, dressed in their cultural finest to commemorate the Thanksgiving according to the Oromo cultural belief systems. And that's all the news we have for you in this bulletin. An English news broadcast will return to you live on Oromia Media Network. But right now we leave you with footage of Irrecha festive celebrations from around the world. I hope you join us in time for our next news bulletin. Until then, my name is Tultu Tufa with technician Adil Osman. Take care, stay safe and goodbye.
Sabakenya egio ya mareo, dia tenya egio ya mareo.